We're already back with the next read for today. So today we're on day 3 of our chapter 1 read of the 1 year, not the one. That's the second time I've done that of Think and Grow Rich. I'm so used to saying that it just comes right off, flows right off the tongue, you know. So, but this is day 3 of Think and Grow Rich. We're gonna do, if you don't know, if you're new, if you've never been here before, if this is your first time that you've been here in this stream and you've never been to any of our reads before, well, I have some for you. So what we do here on this channel, if we read other books that are not the 1 Year Bible, which we do, when we do daily reads, for Think and Grow Rich, we're going to read each chapter every day for a week, right? Why are we going to read each chapter every day for a week, chat? Because that is the only way that you can actually put the things that you read into practice. Without implementation, without actually doing anything with the material, you're just wasting your time, right? And I would hate to waste your time, right? So we're going to read every single chapter for a full week, which should give you more than enough time to put each chapter into practice into your life, right? And for me as well, because sometimes you read these books, you put them down and you don't come back to them the whole day gone. But if you read the same chapter every single week around the same time, it might stick eventually, right? So let's enjoy this beautiful read together. Let's learn together. Let's grow together. And let's enjoy another really good read together, right? This is day 3 of our Think and Grow Rich read. And I hope you enjoy, because I absolutely do. This is day 3. And thank you for the like before I even saw you show up in the chat. I don't even see your number yet, but I know that you're here. What's good with you, Ben? What's up? Hey, thank you, the 3 Rocket League Menaces. What's up, bro? How you doing? What's up? How you doing, Ben? Hope y'all having a wonderful Wednesday. Hope y'all having a wonderful Wednesday. I appreciate you showing up. If you don't know, we're reading Think and Grow Rich. Name a video game character. Ooh, were you just here? Sonic the Hedgehog. Do a backflip. Backflip. I'm reading. This is the wrong stream, bro. I'm reading right now. So if you're new here, chat, and if you had never seen this before, what's up, Evil Germany? That's funny. If you've never been here before, it's your first time being in the chat. Pokey, mine. I do have some back there. I'm not gonna lie. Hey, appreciate that, Thanos. If you've never been here before, we're going to be reading each chapter from this book for a full week, which should give you the ability to apply these things into your real life. And that's the point. If you're not applying these things, then there's no point of doing it. So we're going to read every single day for a week, every single chapter, and it should give you ample opportunity to begin to apply these things to your life if you so want to. This is the book. Really great read, and if you enjoy it, I hope you enjoy it. That's what I meant to say, because I definitely do enjoy this read. And appreciate all y'all just chatting immediately. I love that. That's love right there. I appreciate that. Love going back to you. Appreciate the love coming to me. And now the first chapter is called The Power of Thought. The man who thought his way into partnership with Thomas A. Edison. Truly, thoughts are things, and powerful things at that. When mixed with purpose, persistence, and a burning desire for their translation into riches or other material objects. Edward C. Barnes discovered how true it is that men really do think and grow rich. His discovery did not come about at a one sitting. It came little by little, beginning with a burning desire to become a business associate of the great Thomas Edison. One of the chief characteristics of Barnes' desire was that it was definite. He wanted to work with Edison, not for him. Observe carefully the description of how he went about translating his desire into reality, and you will have a better understanding of the 13 principles which lead to riches. When this desire or impulse of thought first flashed into his mind, he was in no position to act upon it. 2 difficulties stood in his way. He did not know Mr. Edison, and he did not have enough money to pay his rail fare to Orange, New Jersey. These difficulties were sufficient to have discouraged the majority of people from making any attempt to carry out the desire, but his was no ordinary desire. He was so determined to find a way to carry out his desire that he finally decided to travel by blind baggage rather than be defeated. He presented himself at Mr. Edison's laboratory and announced that he had come to go into business with the inventor. In speaking of the first meeting between them years later, Mr. Edison said this: "He stood there before me, looking like any ordinary tramp, but there was something in an expression of his face which conveyed the impression that he was determined to get what he came after. I had learned from years of experience with men that when a man really desires a thing so deeply that he's willing to stake his entire future on the single turn of a wheel in order to get it, he is sure to win. I gave him the opportunity he asked for because I saw he had made up his mind to stand by until he succeeded. Subsequent events proved that no mistake was made. Just what young Barnes said to Mr. Edison on that occasion was far less important than what he thought. Edison himself said so. It could not have been the young man's appearance that got him his start in the Edison office, for that was definitely against him. It was what he thought that counted. If the significance of this statement could be conveyed to every person who reads it, there will be no need for the remainder of this book. Barnes did not get his partnership with Edison on his first interview. He did get a chance to work in the Edison offices at a very nominal wage, doing work that was unimportant to Edison, but most important to Barnes. It gave him an opportunity to display his merchandise where his intended partner could see it. Months went by. Apparently nothing happened to bring the coveted goal, which Barnes had set up in his mind as his definite major purpose. But something important was happening in Barnes' mind. He was constantly intensifying his desire to become the business associate of Edison. Psychologists have correctly said, when one is truly ready for a thing, it puts in its appearance. Barnes was ready for a business association with Edison. Moreover, he was determined to remain ready until he got that which he was seeking. He did not say to himself, "Oh, well, what's the use? I guess I'll change my mind and try for a salesman's job." But he did say, "I came here to go into business with Edison, and I'll accomplish this, and if it takes the remainder of my life." And he meant it. What a different story people would have to tell if only they would adopt a definite purpose and stand by that purpose until it had time to become an all-consuming obsession. Maybe young Barnes did not know it at the time, but his bulldog determination, his persistence with a single desire, was destined to mow down all opposition and bring him the opportunity he was seeking. When the opportunity came, it appeared in a different form and from a different direction than Barnes had expected. That is one of the tricks of opportunity. It has a slight habit of slipping in the back door and often comes disguised in the form of misfortune or temporary defeat. Perhaps this is why so many fail to recognize opportunity. Mr. Edison had just perfected a new office device, known at that time as the Edison dictator machine, later called the Ediphone. His salesmen were not enthusiastic over the machine. They did not believe it could be sold without great effort. Barnes saw his opportunity. It had crawled in quietly, hidden in a queer-looking machine that interested no one but Barnes and the inventor. Barnes knew he could sell the Edison dictator machine, and he suggested to Edison and promptly got his chance. He did sell the machine. In fact, he sold it so successfully that Edison gave him a contract to distribute and market it all over the nation. Out of all that business association grew the slogan, "Made by Edison" and installed by Barnes. This business alliance made Barnes rich in money, but he accomplished something infinitely greater. He proved that one really may think and grow rich. How much actual cash that original desire of Barnes was worth to him, I have no way of knowing. Perhaps it brought him $2 or $3 million. Whatever the amount, it becomes insignificant when compared with the greater asset he acquired, the definite knowledge that an intangible impulse of thought can be transmuted into its physical counterpart by the application of known principles. Barnes literally thought himself into a partnership with the great Edison. He thought himself into a fortune. He had nothing to start with except the capacity
Motion detected at the back door.
to know what he wanted and the determination to stand by that desire until he realized it. He had no money to begin with. He had but little education. He had no influence, but he did have initiative, faith, and the will to win. With these intangible forces, he made himself #1 man with the greatest inventor who ever lived. Now, let us look at a different situation and study a man who had plenty of
Motion detected at the back door.
tangible evidence of riches, but lost it because he stopped 3 feet short of the goal he was seeking. And this one, chat. Hey, what's up, Jay? This one, what did it do? That's not the point of this read. It's not the point of this read, Ryan, but I understand. There have been a lot of thieves in the world, but you know, that's not really the point. Now, 3 feet from gold is the title of this next part. So one of the most common causes of failure is the habit of quitting when one is overtaken by temporary defeat. Every person is guilty of this mistake at one time or another. R.U. Darby, who later became one of the most successful insurance salesmen in the country, tells the story of his uncle, who was caught by the gold fever in the gold rush days, and went west to dig and grow rich. He had never heard the saying that more gold has been mined from the brains of men than has ever been taken from the earth. He staked a claim and went to work with pick and shovel. The going was hard, but his lust for gold was definite. After weeks of labor, he was rewarded by the discovery of shining ore. He needed machinery to bring the ore to the surface. Quietly, he covered up the mine, retraced his footsteps to his home in Williamsburg, Maryland, and told his relatives and a few neighbors of the strike. They got together money for the needed machinery and had it shipped. Then Uncle and Darby went back to work with the mine. The first car of ore was mined and shipped to a smelter. The returns proved they had one of the richest mines in Colorado. A few more cars of that ore would clear the depths. Then would come the big killings and profits. Down with the drills, up went the host of Darby and Uncle. Then something happened. The vein of gold ore disappeared. They had come to the end of the rainbow, and the pot of gold was no longer there. They drilled on, desperately, trying to pick up the vein again, all to no avail. Finally, they decided to quit. They sold the machinery to a junk man for a few $100s and took the train back home. Some junk men are dumb, but not this one. He called in a mining engineer to look at the mine and do a little calculating. The engineer advised that the project had failed because the owners were not familiar with the fault lines. His calculations showed that the vein would be found just 3 feet from where the Darbys had stopped drilling. That is exactly where it was found. Lou, this question that you're asking, bruh, what can you do to help? What can you do to help? Rather than continuing to blame somebody else or something else for something that's happening in this world, what can you do to help the world rather than blame something other than you? What's up, soldier? How you doing, bro? That is exactly where it was found. The junk man took millions of dollars in ore from the mine because he knew enough to seek expert counsel before giving up. Most of the money which went into the machinery was procured through the efforts of R.U. Darby, who was then a very young man. The money came from his relatives and neighbors because of their faith in him. He paid back every dollar of it, although he was years in doing so. Long afterwards, Mr. Darby recouped his loss many times over when he made a discovery that desire could be transmuted into gold. The discovery came after he went into business of selling life insurance. Remembering that he lost a huge fortune because he stopped 3 feet from gold, Darby profited by the experience in his chosen work. His simple method was to say to himself, I stopped 3 feet from gold, but I will never stop because men say no when I ask them to buy insurance. He owes his stickability to the lesson he learned from his quitability in the gold mining business. Before success comes to most people, they are sure to meet with such temporary defeat and perhaps some failure. When faced with defeat, the easiest and most logical thing to do is to quit. That is exactly what the majority of people do. More than 500 of the most successful people in America have ever known told the author their greatest success came just one step beyond the point at which defeat had overtaken them. How you doing, Robert? Welcome to the chat. What's up, Toponga? How you doing? Welcome to the chat. Failure is a trickster with a keen sense of irony and cunning. It takes great delight in tripping one up when success is almost within reach. How you doing, Sanun? Sainin? I'm gonna call you Vob. That's easier to say. How you doing, Vob? And now, a 50-cent lesson in persistence. Shortly after Mr. Darby received his degree from the University of Hard Knocks and had decided to profit by his experience in the gold mining business, he had the good fortune to be present on an occasion that proved to him that no does not necessarily mean no. One afternoon, he was helping his uncle grind wheat in an old-fashioned mill. The uncle operated a large farm on which a number of sharecrop farmers lived. Quietly, the door was opened, and a small child, the daughter of the tenant, walked in and took her place near the door. The uncle looked up and saw the child and barked at her roughly. "What do you want?" Meekly, the child replied, "My mammy says send her 50 cents. "I'll not do it," the uncle retorted. "Now you run on home." "Yes, sir," the child replied, but she did not move. The uncle went ahead with his work, so busily engaged, he did not notice that the child had not left. When he looked up and saw her still standing there, he yelled at her, "I told you to go on home. Now go, or I'll take a switch to you." The little girl said, "Yes, sir," but she did not budge an inch. The uncle dropped the sack of grain he was about to pour into the mill hopper, picked up a barrel stave, and started towards the child with an expression on his face that indicated trouble. Darby held his breath. He was certain he was about to witness a murder. He knew his uncle had a fierce temper, and when the uncle reached the spot where the child was standing, she quickly stepped forward one step, looked up into his eyes, and screamed at the top of her shrill voice, "My mammy's gotta have that 50 cents. The uncle stopped, looked at her for a minute, then slowly laid the barrel stave on the floor, put his hand in his pocket, took out $50, and gave it to her. The child took the money and slowly backed towards the door, never taking her eyes off the man whom she had just conquered. After she had gone, the uncle sat down on a box and looked out the window into the space for more than 10 minutes. He was pondering with awe on the whipping he had just taken. Mr. Darby, too, was doing some thinking. That was the first time in all his experience that he had seen a child of a sharecropper deliberately master an adult authority figure. How did she do it? What happened to his uncle that caused him to lose his fierceness and become as docile as a lamb? What strange power did this child use that made her master over her superior? These and other similar questions flashed into Darby's mind, but he did not find the answer until years later when he told me the story. Strangely, the story of this unusual experience was told to the author in the old mill on the very spot where the uncle took his whipping. As we stood there in the musty old mill, Mr. Darby repeated the story of the unusual conquest and finished by asking, "What can you make of it?" What strange power did that child use that so completely whipped my uncle? The answer to his question will be found in the principles described in this book. The answer is full and complete. It contains details and instructions sufficient to enable anyone to understand and apply the same force that the little child accidentally stumbled upon. Keep your mind alert, and you will observe exactly what strange power came to rescue of the child. You will catch a glimpse of this power in the next chapter. Somewhere in the book, you will find an idea that will quicken your receptive powers and place at your command, for your own benefit, this same irresistible power. The awareness of this power may come to you in the first chapter, or it may flash into your mind in some subsequent chapter. It may come in the form of a single idea, or it may come in the nature of a plan or a purpose. Again, it may cause you to go back into your past experiences of failure or defeat and bring to the surface some lesson by which you can regain all that you lost through defeat. How you doing? Welcome back, Raph. How you doing, man? After I described to Mr. Darby the power unwittingly used by the little child, he quickly retraced his 30 years of experience as a life insurance salesman. He frankly acknowledged that his success in that field was due, in no small degree, to the lesson he had learned from the child. Mr. Darby pointed out, every time a prospect tried to bow me out without buying, I saw the child standing there in the old mill, her big eyes glaring in defiance, and I said to myself, I've got to make this sale. The better portion of all sales I have made were after people said no. He recalled too his mistake in having stopped only 3 feet from gold. But he said that experience was a blessing in disguise. It taught me to keep on keeping on. And no matter how hard the going may be, a lesson I needed to learn before I could succeed in anything. This story of Mr. Darby and his uncle, the sharecropper's child, and the gold mine would doubtlessly be read by hundreds of people who make their living by selling life insurance. To all of these, the author wishes to offer the suggestion that Darby owes to these two experiences his ability to sell more than $1 million of life insurance every year. Life is strange and often imponderable. Both the success and the failures have their roots in simple experiences. Mr. Darby's experiences were commonplace and simple enough, yet, as they held the answer to his destiny in life, they were as important to him as life itself. He profited by these two dramatic experiences because he analyzed them and found the lesson they taught. But what of the person who has neither the time nor the inclination to study failure in search of knowledge that may lead to success? Where and how are they to learn the art of converting defeat into the stepping stones to opportunity? In answer to these questions, this book was written. The answer called for a description of 13 principles. However, remember as you read that the answer you may be seeking to the questions which have caused you to ponder over the strangeness of life may be found in your own mind. Some idea, plan, or purpose may spring into your mind as you read. One sound idea is all you need to achieve success. What's up, niece? Welcome back. The principles described in this book contain the best and most practical ways and means of creating useful ideas. Before we go any further in our approach to the description of these principles, we believe you are entitled to receive this important suggestion. This is all caps, chap. When riches begin to come, they come so quickly in such great abundance that one wonders where they have been hiding during all those years of leanness. This astounding statement, and all the more, this is an astounding statement, and all the more so when we take into consideration the popular belief that riches only come to those who work hard and long. When you begin to think and grow rich, you will observe that riches begin with a state of mind, with definiteness of purpose, with little or no hard work. You and every other person ought to be interested in knowing how to acquire a state of mind that will attract riches. I spent 25 years in research, analyzing more than 25,000 people, because I, too, wanted to know how wealthy men become that way. Without that research, this book could not have been written. So here, take notice of a very significant truth. The business depression started in 1929 and continued on an all-time record of destruction until sometime after President Roosevelt entered office. Then the depression began to fade into nothingness. Just as an electrician in a theater raises the light so gradually that darkness is transmuted into light before you realize it, so did the spell of fear in the minds of people gradually fade away and become faith. How you doing, Willow? Welcome to the chat. As soon as you master the principles of this philosophy and begin to follow the instructions for applying those principles, your financial status will begin to improve. Everything you touch will begin to transmute itself into an asset for your benefit. Impossible? Not at all. One of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average person's familiarity with the word impossible. He knows all the rules that will not work. He knows all the things that cannot be done. This book was written for those who seek the rules that have made others successful and are willing to stake everything on those rules. A great many years ago, I purchased a fine dictionary. The first thing I did was turn to the word impossible and neatly clip it out of the book. That would not be an unwise thing for you to do too. Success comes to those who become success conscious. What's up, Mr. Handsome? I'm handsome too. Failure comes to those who indifferently allow themselves to become failure conscious. The object of this book is to help all those who seek to learn the art of changing their minds from failure to success. Another weakness found in altogether too many people is the habit of measuring everything and everyone by their own impressions and beliefs. Some read this and will believe that no one can think and grow rich. They cannot think in terms of riches because their thoughts, habits have been steeped in poverty, want, misery, failure, and defeat. Millions of people look at achievements of Henry Ford and envy him for his good fortune, or luck, or genius, or whatever it is they credit for Ford's fortune. Perhaps one person in every 100,000 knows the secret of Ford's success, and those who do know are too modest or too reluctant to speak of it because of its simplicity. A huge transaction will illustrate the secret perfectly. When Ford decided to produce his now famous V8 motor, he chose to build an engine with the entire 8 cylinders cast into one block and instructed his engineers to produce a design for the engine. The design was placed on paper, but the engineers believed it was simply impossible to cast an 8-cylinder gas engine block into one piece. Ford said, "Produce it anyway." But they replied, "It's impossible." "Go ahead," Ford commanded, "and stay on the job until you succeed, no matter how much time is required." The engineers went ahead. There was no other option if they wanted to remain on the Ford staff. 6 months went by and nothing happened. Another 6 months passed and still nothing happened. The engineers tried every conceivable plan to carry out the orders, but the thing seemed out of the question, impossible. At the end of the year, Ford checked with his engineers, and again they informed him they found no way to carry out his orders. Go right ahead, Ford said. I want it, and I'll have it. They went ahead, and then, as if by a stroke of magic, the secret was discovered. The Ford determination had won once more. This story may not be described with minute accuracy, but the sum and substance of it is correct. Deduce from it, you who wish to think and grow rich, the secret of the 4 millions, if you can. You'll not have to look very far. Henry Ford is a success because he understands and applies the principles of success. One of these is desire, knowing what one wants. Remember this Ford story as you read. Sorry, chat. My lip itch. And pick out the lines in which the secret of his stupendous achievement has been described. If you can do this, you can lay your finger on the particular group of principles that made Henry Ford rich.
Motion detected at the garage.
You can equal his achievements in almost any calling for which you are suited. And now, this is an italicized statement here. The Henry Ford of the late 20th century was Bill Gates. This is Ford revolutionized the transportation industry by creating a car that almost anyone could afford and drive. Bill Gates transformed the computer industry by designing software that enabled everybody, not just the specialized technocrats, to be able to use computers, and later making this personal computer a virtual necessity in every office, school, and home. This resulted in Bill Gates accruing billions of dollars and becoming the richest man in America. He first became interested in computers and began programming them at the age of 13. In 1973, he entered Harvard University, where he lived down the hall from Steve Ballmer, now Microsoft's chief executive officer. While at Harvard, Gates developed a version of the programming language, BASIC, for the first microcomputer. Gates was so absorbed in his dream of building a software company that he left Harvard to devote his energies to fulfilling it. A few years earlier, he and his childhood friend, Paul Allen, had formed a company, Microsoft, as a vehicle for this endeavor, guided by a belief that the computer will be a valuable tool on every office desktop and in every home. They began developing software for personal computers. Gates' foresight and his vision for personal computing had been central to the success of Microsoft and the software company. Having achieved his major goal, Bill Gates continued to pursue new goals, both in business of creating ever-improving computing programs and in his philanthropic work, having founded with his wife, Melinda, the largest charitable foundation in the world. And now, you are the master of your fate and the captain of your soul. When English poet W.C. Henley wrote the prophetic lines, "I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul," he should have informed us that the reason we are the masters of our fate, the captains of our soul, is because we have the power to control our thoughts. He should have told us that the ether in which this little planet floats, in which we move and have our being, is a form of energy moving at an inconceivably high rate of vibration, and that the ether is filled with a form of universal power which adapts itself to the nature of the thoughts we hold in our minds, and influences us in natural ways to transmute our thoughts into their physical equivalent. If the poet had told us of this great truth, we would know why it is that we are the masters of our fate, the captains of our souls. He should have told us with great emphasis that his power makes no attempt to discriminate between destructive and constructive thoughts, that it will urge us to translate into physical reality thoughts of poverty just as quickly as it will influence us to act upon thoughts of riches. He should have told us, too, that our brains become magnetized with dominating thoughts we hold in our minds, by means which no one is familiar with. These magnets attract to us the forces, the people, the circumstances of life which harmonize with the nature of our dominating thoughts. He should have told us that before we accumulate riches in great abundance, we must magnetize our minds with intense desire for riches, that we must become money conscious until the desire for money drives us to create definite plans for acquiring it. But being a poet and not a philosopher, Henley contented himself by stating the great truth in poetic form, leaving those who followed him to interpret the philosophical meaning of his lines. Little by little, the truth has unfolded itself, until now it appears certain that the principles described in this book hold the secret of mastery over our economic fate. And now another italicized section, chat. Another man who exemplifies being master of his fate is Steven Spielberg. One of the all-time great motion picture directors, he dreamed of being a movie director from childhood. He began making amateur films with a primitive camera when he was still a child, and the dream never subsided. How Spielberg broke into Universal Studios is a legend in the movie industry. He took the Universal Studios tour, an attraction that enables visitors to get an inside look at the movie business, and visitors ride around the studio's lots on a tram. Steven sneaked off the tram and hid between two sound stages until the tour ended. When he left at the end of the day, he made a point of saying a few words to the gate guard. Day after day, he went back to the studio for 3 months. He walked past the guard and waved at him, and he waved back. He always wore a suit and carried a briefcase, letting the guard assume he was one of the students with a summer job in the studio. He made a point of speaking to and befriending directors, writers, and editors. He even found a vacant office, took it over, and listed his name in the building directory. He made it his business to get to know Sid Sheinberg, the head of production for the studio's television arm. He showed his college film project, which so impressed Sheinberg that he put the young man under contract with the studio. His first full-length film, The Sugarland Express, received critical acclaim and won a Best Screenplay Award at the 1974 Cannes Film Festival. Unfortunately, though, it did not do very well at the box office. His big break came a year later when he discovered the book Jaws. How you doing, Alyssa? Welcome to the chat. The studio had already decided to produce Jaws and had chosen a well-known director to film it. Spielberg desperately wanted to make this movie, despite the financial failure of The Sugarland Express. His self-confidence had not diminished, and he persuaded the producers to dismiss the chosen director and give the film to him. How you doing, Linda? Welcome back, Linda. It was not an easy assignment. From the beginning, trouble beset the production. It ran into technical and budget problems. However, when Jaws was released in 1975, it enjoyed twofold success. It broke box office records, and the critics loved it. Within a month of its release, the film had taken in $60 million at the box office, an unheard of amount at the time. Over the next few years, Spielberg directed several movies, including the popular Indiana Jones series, the award-winning The Color Purple, Empire of the Sun, and E.T. He later directed Jurassic Park, which would also become, at its time, the most successful movie in history, the third Spielberg film to break the record. It also brought in over $1 billion in gross receipts, toys, and other merchandise. Spielberg continues to pursue his dreams when he and two other Hollywood moguls created their own production company. They called it DreamWorks. I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad you're having a great day. How you doing, Christine? Or Kristen? And now we are ready to examine the first of these principles. Maintain a spirit of open-mindedness. Remember as you read that they are an invention of no single person. The principles were gathered from the life experiences of more than 500 men who actually accumulated riches in huge amounts. Men who began in poverty, with little education or influence. The principles work for these men, and you can put them to work for you and your own enduring benefit. You will find it easy, not hard to do. Before you read the next chapter, I want you to know that it conveys factual information that might easily change your entire financial destiny, as it has so definitely brought changes of stupendous proportions to two people described. I want you to know also that the relationship between these two men and myself is such that I could have taken no liberties with the facts, even if I had wished to do so. One of them has been my closest personal friend for almost 25 years, and the other is my own son. The unusual success of these two men, success that they generously credit to the principle described in the next chapter, more than justifies this personal reference as a means of emphasizing the far-flung power of this principle. And that is the end of chapter 1, chat, of Think and Grow Rich. Sorry if I feel like I kind of sped up a bit at the end there, but still did. I started to get a little cross-eyed. I got a little cross-eyed towards the end there, but came out good. But now let's go over today's chapter, chat. So what did we read about today, chat? So today we read about, in essence, the heading of the chapter, right? Today we read about the heading of the chapter, right? And this chapter is called The Power of Thought. In this way, we learned about a bunch of characters who allowed themselves to think and grow rich, right? According to the name of the book, right? right? And let's go over these characters in order. So the first person we talked about was Edwin C. Barnes, right, chat? So Edwin C. Barnes was the first person we talked about. And what did he want to do? What was his burning desire? What did he have to do, right? He had to work with, not for, Thomas Edison. Regardless of how you feel about Thomas Edison, right? Doesn't matter. That has nothing to do with right now. Because I understand, right? I understand where people are coming from. But regardless of how you feel about that, it's not about him. It's about Barnes right now, right? So Barnes wanted to work with, not for, Edison, right? So what happened with Barnes, right? What happened with Barnes? What happens to many people when they get a new idea that they want to have, but they don't do? And what happened to Barnes that most people don't do? So Barnes got the idea, but when he got the idea, he did not have the money, he didn't have the means, and he had no idea who Thomas Edison was in real life, right? So he had a bunch of things stacked against him, right? According to the chapter, that's enough for most people to quit. I'm sure of it. I've met plenty of people. I've been in situations myself where it seemed like maybe I should do something else, right? But that's not what Barnes did. Barnes did not waver on his ambition because he didn't have the means at the time. He just allowed his ambition to grow deeper inside of him, right? Because eventually his ambition would be something that couldn't be stopped, right? But let's keep reading about what Barnes did. So Barnes, he staked everything he had on getting to meet Thomas Edison, and being able to work with him and not for him. How did he do this, right? He took everything he had to go catch a train, a railway to Edison, to meet him in person, to say, I will be working with you one day, not for you. And Edison had no way to deny him at that point, right? He saw his determination. How many times have you met somebody and you saw the fire in them? You saw the determination in them, that they could not be told no in this situation. And what happened when that person went after their goal? Did they get told no? Probably not, right? And Barnes is no different. Edison saw Barnes, and what he saw inside of Barnes, it was what made him give Barnes his opportunity. Now, what did Barnes do with his opportunity when he got it? Now, a lot of people get this opportunity, and then life starts happening, and you start to coast. It's easy. Kind of figured it out. It's easy. I keep doing this for a long. I don't gotta go nowhere else. I don't even have to keep going after my actual goal anymore. I'm cool now, right? That happens a lot, right? But what did Barnes do? He didn't do that. He got his opportunity, and even though it wasn't important work, right? It wasn't important work. How many times has you've been doing something that wasn't important? That didn't seem important, right? So then you didn't want to do it anymore because it just didn't seem important. It was like, why am I doing this? It's not that important, right? Barnes didn't have that attitude. Barnes still kept his ambition close to his chest, locked into his mind, but more definitely close to his chest, right? He still knew in his heart someday he was going to work with, but not for, Edison. And how did he do this, right? How did Barnes get to this moment? He stayed ready. He even said it himself. He stayed ready for his opportunity, right? And that's a really good thing for people, for me and everyone to remember, because I'm also talking to myself, is to always stay ready for your opportunity and always be preparing for your dreams. If you have a dream, if you really want something, if you have to have something happen for you, then you have to get ready for it. You can't have a dream and not prepare. You have to get prepared. If you have a dream, you have to do the things to be ready for that dream. If you have a dream of being a public speaker, you have to maybe take speaking classes, right? Maybe read out loud, right? If you have a dream of creating a business, maybe go around people who have businesses, right? They got ambition to create businesses. Be around those people. Learn from those people. If you have dreams in any way, how are you preparing to achieve the dream? How Barnes did it was he stayed ready in the presence of Edison and ready for whenever his big break came. that he knew he would be ready whenever it came, right? And when it came, he became the biggest salesman ever. He became the biggest salesman ever. He became so big, in fact, that when people thought about the Ediphone, what was the slogan? It was made by Edison and installed by Barnes. It was made by Edison and installed by Barnes. He was so prepared for his moment that when his moment came, he excelled so strongly that the saying changed from whatever it was before to this, made by Edison and installed by Barnes. Is that not determination? Is that not preparing? What is the time? It is 6:34, bro. Yeah, so he prepared for his moment, man. So he prepared for his moment. And you could do nothing but clap your hands for somebody who you can see is going towards a goal. And sticking to it, right? You can't do nothing but clap for somebody like that. You can't do nothing but clap for somebody who's going towards a goal and sticking to it. But now we're gonna talk about what happens when you come up short, right? What happens when you come up short? This next part is called 3 Feet from Gold. And we talked about this when we read, but this is about R.U. Darby and his uncle, right? And what is this story about? Well, R.U. Darby and his uncle, they found gold back in the days, right? They found a gold mine. They came in and brought in family members. They struck gold, but then the gold ran dry, right? And then they tried and looked. They looked around to see if they could try to find the gold, but eventually they gave up, right? And a lot of times we try so hard at something, but eventually, it feels like we should just give up, right? But this story is a lesson to not give up right then. At that right around that corner is the success you're looking for. Right around the corner is exactly what you're hoping to receive, right? And this is what we learned from this story. Now, they ended up selling their mining machine to a random junkyard dude. But the junkyard dude had it in him to ask for expert help. He asked for somebody to help him out to see if he can get an expert opinion on if he should junk this or keep looking for gold. Well, the dude told him, yo, 3 feet away from here, you will find more gold. Lo and behold, bars. Lo and behold, 3 feet down, he found the gold. He became rich. Richer than he probably, what's good with you, backhand? What's up with you, bro? Lo and behold, he found the gold, right? And he became rich. But what does that show us, right? It shows us it's just a little bit more effort that we need to give. Yo, I'm 6 and I'm a huge fan. Hey, appreciate you, Libby. I'm glad you're starting at a great time in your life. This is that's pretty funny. Always love, bro. But he ended up finding the gold. But we also want to learn another thing from Darby here. Another thing that we want to learn from Darby here is when we look back on past mistakes, don't look back on mistakes like it's the end of the world, right? Darby and his uncle could have looked on this mistake of missing out on a landmine of gold, a landmine of riches, and just said, yo, my life, like, what else should I live for at this point, right? They could have easily made up a whole bunch of not productive thoughts in their head and beat on themselves and ended up somewhere else rather than where they ended up, right? They bounced back, right? They looked back on it and they used it for motivation for the future. Not to beat on themselves and make them feel bad about the future, but to motivate them for the future. So in the future, when they were close to their goal, they realized to not give up, right? And that's a great lesson to learn. Everybody's going to fail. Nobody's not going to fail. Everybody's going to fail at something eventually in life. But it's not about failing. It's about getting back up, right? So I want you to remember this story about failing, but not falling. About failing but not falling. You got a chance to get back up, right? And then when you look back on your past or whatever happened in your life, because something's happened to everybody, man. When you look back on your life, you can see it as motivation for the future instead of stagnation for the future, And I just want you to remember this story about R.U. Darby, right? 3 feet from gold, right? But it ain't the end of the world. right? It ain't the end of the world. Now, let's keep on reading. Let's keep on reading, right? So we got a 50-cent lesson in persistence. Now we got another story about Mr. Darby and his uncle, right? And now we have a child here. So it's a child here, and she needed 50 cents for her mammy. For her mammy, she said, my mammy said, send her 50 cents. Now, Darby's uncle said, I ain't giving you no 50 cents. You better get out of here. Right now, everybody else, apparently, according to Mr. Darby, would have hightailed it out of there because they were scared of his uncle. Everybody knew his uncle had a bad temper, right? They would have hightailed it out of there and not got that 50 cents and left. But the girl showed persistence and determination to not leave until she got what she came for. That is a great lesson to learn. Sometimes we have to stick around until we get what we came for. Sometimes you have to be persistent in your goal in order to achieve your goal. What's up, Hello Kitty lover? Dang, man, I just had a Hello Kitty pack. I just gave it away to somebody. I would have showed it to you. That's crazy. I had a Hello Kitty pack. I was gonna give it to my brother-in-law because he loves Hello Kitty for some reason. For some reason, I gave it away. I was gonna show it to you. But what can we learn from a little girl in this situation? To not back up just because somebody may be standing in our way, right? That's funny. Hello Kitty's pretty cool. to not back away just because somebody might be trying to stand in our way, right? She was determined to stand up to the big bad. Sometimes we got to stand up to the big bad. Sometimes the big bad is our own mind. Sometimes you got to stand up to your own mind. Sometimes the big bad is you. Sometimes the big bad is not an external person, but it's yourself, right? Sometimes you need to stand up to yourself, for yourself, right? To understand that you won't stop until you reach your goal. No matter what comes into your mind, I'm not going to stop until I get to my goal. That's something we can learn from this little girl. She didn't back up, and we can't back up either, right? She actually took a step forward. So the uncle, another piece from the story, the uncle ran towards her with like a belt or something. And even though he was about to give her a whooping, as he said, she stepped a foot forward towards him and repeated her statement. My mammy says, send her 50 cents. The uncle had no choice but to give her 50 cents. The uncle had no choice. You know? Now let's keep reading. Now what else did we read about today? Oh, Henry Ford. Let's not skip Henry Ford, right? Henry Ford. So what did Henry Ford do? What made Henry Ford, what gives us a great example of the power of thought from Henry Ford, right? Okay, everybody knows who Henry Ford is. And if you don't know, Built Ford Tough. Built Ford Tough. If that's all you need to know right there, right? But Henry Ford, right? He had an idea for an 8-cylinder engine to be put into one cylinder. I think that's what it was. Or one case or something like that. But his engineers said it was impossible. They didn't believe it could be done. How many times have we met somebody in our life or had somebody tell us a story and then they believed that what was coming was impossible for them to accomplish? I mean, I got an example for myself. When I was getting certified, when I was getting my IT certifications, they told me I couldn't do that in 6 months. But I didn't believe nothing they were talking about. I said, yes, I can. I said, you don't know me. I said, yes, I can, and I did, right? I mean, I came up close, but I still achieved my goal, right? Now, how many times has somebody thought that someone was impossible, but then it was still achieved? How many groundbreaking things have we accomplished as people all around us right now, easily seeable right in front of us that people thought were impossible before? We got computers. You watching me on a screen on YouTube Shorts. I'm sure somebody thought this was impossible before, right? But so what did Ford do in the situation? Yeah, I had to step up and I'm bullying. She was in 6th grade. I'm in the 4th grade. She's been bullying me since I was in 3rd grade. I finally stepped up to her. I'm glad you stepped up to her, and I hope it was in a non-violent. It was like a non-violent resolution there, you know. But what did Ford do in the situation? What's up, Christopher? Hey, we got the same name, bro. You must be cool. But what did Ford do? His engineer said it was impossible, but he said, "Hey, no matter how long this takes, this will be accomplished." Now, it took a year. It didn't happen instantaneously, right? Sometimes things take a while to happen, right? But that does not mean that it's still impossible. All of our inventions over time didn't happen out of the blue. All the things that we have around us, the cars, the computers, the microphones, the YouTube shorts, the cell phones, the TVs, that didn't just happen out of the blue. It happened with persistence, right? With persistence towards a destined, a desired goal, right? A definite goal. Somebody definitely knew that this was going to happen and they did not give up until it happened. And sometimes that is what's required, you know? It was in a novel. I'm happy for you. That's what's required sometimes, you know? So let's take that from Ford. Sometimes you have to stick to something for a long time sometimes until it works out. But if you stay stuck to your goal, you know, with a definite purpose in mind, with your goal stuck to your mind, your goal will happen. It has no choice. Now, let's keep going. And if you don't believe me, we've just went over 4 different people who did the same thing and it worked, right? But let's keep going. Let's keep going. I want to go over Steven Spielberg. Now, Steven Spielberg's story is crazy, and I like this story a lot. I'm not gonna lie, I like this story a lot. But because he played the role, he did all of it. He did everything he needed to do in the situation, right? But Steven Spielberg, pretty sure you probably know who that is. He makes movies. I think everybody knows who this guy is. If you like movies, you probably know who he is, right? But when he got his start, right? How did he get his start? He didn't get it because it was handed to him. It wasn't. It didn't get handed to him on a silver platter, right? Do you watch? I do. I do. But it didn't get handed to him on a silver platter, right? He had to find a way to make it happen, right? He had to begin to play the role. Sometimes we have to play the role of who we want to be, right? Steven had to play the role of who he wanted to be. He had to meet the people. This is another step, right? He had to meet the people. What's up, humanity? You have a toga hoodie? Oh, that's fire. He ended up meeting the people. He embodied the director he expected himself to become, right? So he hopped off. He snuck around, met everybody, looked around the place, got familiar with the environment, and then he came back every single day for 3 months. But what did he do? Did he keep riding the tram and acting like a bystander, somebody who's just looking at what he wants without actually going for it? No. He put on his clothes, he grabbed his briefcase, and he made it a point. I appreciate that, humanity. He made it a point to meet everybody, shake their hand, and make them feel like he belonged there. He made everybody feel like he belonged, right? Everybody felt that he belonged there. Nobody questioned it. So why would he question it if nobody else questioned it? So he belonged there. Sometimes you have to play the role because you know you belong. You belong there, right? Appreciate the sub. You belong there. You belong to have this success. You belong to succeed, right? You belong to have what you desire, the definite thought in your mind. That belongs to you. So you have to play your role sometimes and be that person and be that. And that's what Steven did. He did that. I'm from North Carolina, bro. He did that every day for 3 months. Every day for 3 months. He came back every single day. And then he made friends with the directors. He found his spot. And then when his opportunity was ready, the same as Barnes, he was ready for his opportunity. He showed Scheinberg his play. Scheinberg loved his play. He said, I got you. I got you. Go ahead and produce it. And even though, and this is another thing to learn, his first movie, it didn't pan out well. Nobody liked the Sugarland Express. But, what's up, AB? How you doing? But he did not let that destroy his confidence. That's another lesson to learn. Sometimes we want something so bad and then we have our opportunity and it just doesn't work out. The first time, right? What's up, Ash? What's up with you, bro? I'm from North Carolina, man. The first time. But did Steven give up? That's something to remember. Just because it didn't work the first time, that does not mean to give up. That does not mean give up. Steven didn't give up. He got his next opportunity. The movie Jaws. Have a challenge. Can you do it? What's up? What's the challenge? Definitely, probably. Depends on what the challenge is. Right? Depends on what the challenge is. But definitely if it's not something crazy. I'm Emily, what's your name? My name's Chris, or Limitless Core. I went to North Carolina 2 years ago for vacation. Yeah, North Carolina's a beautiful place. I love it. But let's get back to Steven, right? So, but Steven got his next. Genevieve, what's up, Genevieve? How you doing? How you doing? To the chat. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that. I said it in my head already. I was playing it out. I was playing it out. But let's get back to Steven, right? So, but sometimes we fail the first time. But as we learn from several other people, failure does not mean that's the end of the road. He saw his next opportunity, the movie Jaws, and he so wanted to produce this movie that he was able to find a way to get people to allow him to produce the movie and to let the other person who was going to do it in the first place move on to something else, right? And even though he got that opportunity, it didn't mean it didn't come with his own struggles, right? Sometimes we get opportunity, and then it seems like you get the opportunity, it feels like it should just work out now. But sometimes it doesn't just work out as soon as you get the opportunity. But if you stay determined and persistent towards it, appreciate that, bro. Appreciate it, EB, and persistent towards it. Eventually, your hard work pays off. That's what Steven found out. He ended up producing Jaws, and it broke records. He made 60 million. That was a number at the time. 60 million at the time. Chat, 60 million. What's up, Braden? That's a crazy statement to come here and say. I'm not gonna lie, but I guess you were watching a trial or something. I have no idea. I'm not watching that. That's not something I'd be paying attention to. I'm not gonna lie. But all right, but he ended up making that movie, the Jaws, his first movie, The Sugar Land Express. Nobody liked it, but his second movie, Jaws, loved it. I'm not gonna talk about it. It's not my place. But like, I mean, only thing I know about it is the baby oil, and I just honestly having that much baby oil is crazy, but it is what it is. That was 112. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. But that's not the point of this chat. That's not the point of this. We're not gonna bring that over here. That has nothing to do with what we're doing over here. That's nothing to do with what we're doing over here, right? But let's get back to it. Steven, he had his first opportunity was Sugar Land Express. It did not work, right? It didn't pan out. But let's remember what Steven didn't do. He did not give up. He didn't throw in the towel. He didn't say, "Well, that was my opportunity. It's gone and lost. That was my only opportunity." No, that was not his only opportunity. He didn't allow that to be his only opportunity. He didn't allow that to be his. Appreciate the sub, bro. He didn't allow that to be his only opportunity. He said, "It's not over yet. It's not over yet." He got his next opportunity, and he killed it. No matter what happened, no matter what hiccups happened on the process, on the way. Steven Spielberg, the movie director. What's up, Rebecca? What's up, Essie? He didn't let that stop him or deter him in any way. He ended up producing Jaws, and it broke records. Who, what, when, where? You should have said when. Who, what is when, where? It's who, what, when, where. Is yours who, what, why, where? How? But I'm in my 20s. I'm in my 20s, you know. That's pretty funny. But Steven didn't throw in the towel there, man. So, and that's just to remind you that sometimes an opportunity comes and you go for it. You get into that SE and it comes and you feel like you're ready for it. And you feel like you're prepared for it. And then, I'm doing pretty good, Rebecca. How you doing? You feel like you're prepared for it. But then it just comes up a little short, right? But that does not mean to lose your confidence. That does not mean that's the end of the road for you. That means that maybe there's another opportunity. Stay focused. Get prepared. Get even more prepared than you were the last time. And be ready. Be ready, right? And Steven stayed ready. Steven Spielberg stayed ready, right? And now we all know who he is. He makes crazy movies. He made crazy movies. I remember all these movies from when I was a kid. E.T., The Color Purple. I didn't watch Jaws. I'm scared of sharks. I didn't watch Jaws. I'm not gonna lie, scary. And Jurassic Park. You know, these are. But he could have quit after Sugar Land Express, but he didn't. And now we all know who he is. And that's just a great way to end today's read. This was day 3 of our Think and Grow Rich read, League of Their Own. Jesus Christ. This is day 3 of Think and Grow Rich. And as you guys, if you're not aware, we're going to be doing this read every single day for a week. So we're going to read every single chapter for a week in a row. That gives us a chance to digest the material, apply these principles to our life, and then and grow, right? And I want us to all grow together and grow in a positive way. And I would love to see all you guys one day, you know, with successful mindsets. You know, I'd love to see myself one day with a very successful mindset, even more successful, you know, meeting together, smiling, maybe having food, meeting up, having like a, you know, just something cool. We're going to do this read every single chapter for a week straight for every single chapter. It may take us a little while to get through the book, but I feel like it's going to be well worth it. And I hope you join me for our daily reads, because we're doing it every single chapter for a week straight, taking notes, having discussions, and I hope you enjoy it. I just genuinely hope you enjoy the reads, honestly. And if you've never seen this outro before, I hope you enjoyed this outro. We about to hit real quick. We all got that limitless core, baby. I appreciate you. I might even love you, but I'm for sure glad you woke up today. Thank you for joining me for another read on the channel, another daily read of Think and Grow Rich. And I hope to see you again in the very near future. We have a lot of other content on the channel: basketball, workouts, reading, random little videos for shorts, food, whatever we want to look for. We might have a little bit of it here on the channel. And I hope to see you again soon. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and peace. And I appreciate that comment, Kitty. I thank you. I'm glad that I'm not aging too fast, you know. So I'm glad I'm not aging too fast, you know. I appreciate that. And I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Peace.